So, this particular stream is intended to be an introduction not only to the Lord of the Rings trading card game, but also GEMP, which is the platform that everybody uses. So first I'd like to plop a few different links down, and that these will be in the description of the video so that anybody who needs to can see them. First is the Players Council website, which is Lord of the Rings trading card game playerscouncil.net, LotR-TCG PC.net. Here, if you have any additional questions that you end up needing answered, there's a link here to our Discord channel, and there's also a some frequently asked questions up here, including how do I get started playing, which has links to other videos that you can watch, as well as links to the official rulebooks and things of that nature. The other thing that I want you to keep in mind is the wiki, which I will be using extensively here on the stream, which is just wiki.lordoftheringsTradingCardGamePC.net. This has a lot of good information and will allow you to search for individual cards. If you have any questions about them, there are links up here again to the rulebooks, starter decks that you can use to get yourself up and running quickly, and then just if you have any questions about basic aspects of the game, there's quick links up here and more in-depth links as you scroll down on the main page. But if you want to play, then just once again, that link is going to be play.lordoftheringsTradingCardGamePC.net. You will have to register an account. If you do, make sure that you remember, you use a password that you're going to remember, because at the moment there is not any good password recovery options. So keep that in mind. But yeah, this is the platform that we will be using. So before we hop in, I do want to do kind of a high-level overview of what exactly we'll be doing. So I went over and clicked on the deck builder, which is right here, this small link, and I've got some example cards up here that I'd like to just use for this little brief explanation. So the basic idea is that you are going to be playing both as Frodo and the Fellowship protecting him, and the Forces of Shadow trying to break him down and corrupt him or kill him. And so every deck is going to require that you have an equal number of cards both on the side of Free Peoples and on the side of the Shadow. You'll be shuffling them together and drawing a hand that has a mix, and then you will be alternating back and forth with your opponent between playing Free Peoples and Shadow. So all the things that you need to have are shown more or less on the screen here. You'll need to have a Ring Bearer with a ring, you'll need to have a Free Peoples deck and a Shadow deck, and then you will need to have an Adventure deck that has 9 cards in it that will represent the different places that you'll be traveling through. Over here on the right, we've got a place for searching for cards. This first drop down will indicate what format you want to play. I would recommend sticking with Fellowship Block if you're a newcomer, just because that limits the number of cards that you're going to be dealing with to about 500 as opposed to the 3,500 that the entire game has. And then there are further filters here that you can filter by culture. You can filter by card types. If you want to look at just characters, then you can see those. You can also mix and match these. So if I only want to see Dwarven characters, then I can put those two filters together, and it shows me just all of my choices. And then if you know a particular card by name, then you can come up here and you can try to search for it. So if I search for Gimli, Son of Gloin, then we get that card that shows up. And yeah, like you were asking, Zach, we've got, if you hold down Shift and click, you get the preview. So I haven't actually mentioned him yet, but I have a friend here, Zach, who is a newcomer to the game.
Howdy, y'all.
So I'm going to be showing him the ropes as I show you all the ropes, and if he has any questions, then we'll go over them, and we can hopefully have a little bit more of an actual learning experience here, so that hopefully any questions that people have will actually end up getting answered. So, first thing I'd like to go over real quick, let me pull this up, got it right here, is to just go over the basic layout of a card real quick, so that if there's a question that you have, you might at least know the name of what it is to start asking. So there are 3 basic layouts to individual cards. The first is what's called a character layout. You'll see that it's got the title here at the top. The second is what we call the modifier layout. It's got its title there along the side, and then you've got the sights, which are horizontal on their side. All cards are going to follow one of these 3 basic layouts. Most of them are going to have a elements that are shared, so all of them have a title somewhere. It's at the top here for the characters, on the side for modifiers, and here in the middle at the top for sites. And then all the stats tend to be clustered in one area, so you've got the left-hand side for both the character and the modifier, and then the site has in there lying along the top. So this particular diagram is also available here on the wiki, so if we come over here to this card layout link that is right there at the front, you can see those exact same images if you're ever confused or need to take a look again. Just to get the name of whatever it is that you're confused about, and then you can search for it to hopefully get more information across the wiki. But so besides the title, the other things at the top here at the top are good to pay attention to. First is the Twilight cost. For Free People's cards, this is going to show up as a white circle, and for Shadow cards, it's going to show up as a black diamond. So if I just scroll down here real quick and find a Shadow card, we can see here that's got a black diamond instead of the white circle. And so that is how you're going to differentiate between your Free Peoples and Shadow most of the time. You've also over here on the side got a culture symbol, which is equivalent to colors in other games such as Magic the Gathering. And most of your decks are going to be probably based around one culture with maybe a few others mixed in, depending. There are some decks called rainbow decks that allow you to try and work with multiple cultures, but by and large you'll probably be working with mostly one of each, one Free Peoples and one Shadow. When you're playing the game, sometimes there will be references to those cultures just by their silhouette. So here we can see this line says, "Bearer must be a Gandalf culture wizard," meaning that either Gandalf or Radagast can use this. And so...
Oh, that's neat that Radagast falls under his culture.
Yep. It's, yeah, they tended to stick to culture enforcement, as they call it, although they did occasionally fall into the trap of sometimes being too specific. There's a lot of... In fact, before Radagast was introduced into the game, most Gandalf cards would just simply say, "Bearer must be Gandalf." But after that point, they're like, okay, let's open it up and try to make it a little more open-ended. Another thing is down here, we've got the card type, so that'll always be here on the left. So companions, this over here is an event, and then we can see that this is a possession. Most of the time, you don't have to worry necessarily about that. Cards will mention if they do something to possessions or to events or to companions, but for the most part it's just a distinguisher. Same over here with the subtype. For possessions it'll be an item class, so Gandalf will be using a mount at that point, and then we also see here that Gimli is a dwarf. There will be cards that interact with dwarves, and so that will be what you look at when you're trying to see if a card that spots a dwarf will be able to interact with Gimli. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that is this right here, the collector's info. Sometimes, unfortunately, on GEMP, there are cards that will come up that are practically unreadable. They might be using Tengwar, the Elvish script, or sometimes in some cases you might just have a hard time reading it because it's loading slowly or whatever. In those situations, you might only have the collector's info here to search off of, and so you can use the wiki to very quickly look a card up that way. So for instance, if we type in 1R13 up here in the search bar, then the first result that we get here is Gimli, Son of Gloin, which is that same card. So if you ever need to look up, that's the best way to do it. Just really quickly, the collector's info here is cut into three parts. The first number is the set number, so this is from Fellowship of the Ring, set number 1. The middle number is just the rarity, so it's a rare card, shortened to R, and then the last number is the card number. So this is the 13th card of the first set. And so when you're trying to narrow things down, if you see something that says, okay, a 4, well, what is that from? That's probably it's the two towers here. And so that can very quickly help you narrow down what it is that you're looking at if you have an image that you're not sure what's going on. And then other than that, of course, the big thing to keep in mind with almost all cards is the game text here, which is divided into two major parts that you need to worry about. One are keywords, which are always going to be in bold up here. So Gimli is damage +1, which has a particular meaning that we'll go over later. You will also run into some keywords that are just identifiers, like you might have Aragorn as a ranger, you might have Legolas as an archer, you know, things like that. So that will those will pop up, and then you will also have abilities here that you can trigger at various times to get different effects. So another one of the links here on the front is the phases. As we play the game, you know, we'll go over into this more detail later, but there are 7 different phases that we run through, and as we can see here, Gimli, Son of Gloin has a Skirmish ability, which he will be able to activate during the Skirmish phase, and so that will give you the timing as to when you'll be able to use these abilities. But yeah, I think that's probably enough drinking from the fire hose as far as that goes. We'll definitely go into more detail as we find the need to. I've got an example here of just all the different card types, but to be honest, I'm not sure that they are necessarily important here. So let's go ahead and start out by cracking out some decks and playing some games, and we'll just go over everything slowly as we need to. So there's 2 ways that you can make a deck, of course. One is to simply sit down and start finding cards and taking a look through them and adding them over here to your decks. When you have a card found on the side over here, you simply click on it and it adds a copy. You can have up to 4 copies in any deck, so you just keep repeating on it, keep repeatedly clicking on it. But if you find that you added too many, then you just come over here and you click on the stack, and it will reduce the number of cards there. Oh, there's also this zoom function up here, which is almost but not quite worthless. Your choices are small and smaller, but at least it lets you pack in more images while you're trying to figure that out. Oh, and there are several different formats that you might target with your deck, and so this tiny little section down here will give you an evaluation of whether or not what you have up at the top is legal for that particular format. So here in Fellowship Block, we see that it contains a card that is not from a valid set. Well, actually, so that's a PC errata. So if we look at the one that's actually the PC format, it says deck contains below the minimum number of cards. You have to have at least 60, and it only detects 19. So that'll give you a reason to start looking for more things to fix about your deck until you finally fulfilled all of the things that it requires. So that's one way of doing it, and the way that you'll obviously have to tweak decks. But another way that you can do things is that there's an import deck button up here. So let me clear that out. And then on the wiki, once again, there is, if you're on that starting page, there is a starter decks link, which will give you a little bit of background as to starter decks in general, but then it will also list all of the official starter decks that Decipher published. These are very basic decks that were intended to introduce people to the game. There are a couple of pitfalls to them, notably that they are simplistic, and the other being that they are not actually technically legal to use. You'll see here that this has not only less than the 30 card minimum per side, but it's also got a different number of cards on each side. Those physical decks came with 3 random rares, and so it was expected that 2 of them would be, you know, it would narrow this out and make it, or flatten it out and make it even. But so if we just take that whole list there and we copy it, we can come over here and click on this little down arrow import button and paste it in, and then we click on import, and it will automatically produce the deck for us. And as we can see, it's not legal. Like I said, there's a few issues that need to be fixed before it could actually be used. But I think that this is going to be our best bet here, Zach, to start with. Actually, so there's 2 different ways we can do this tonight, and maybe we'll end up doing both, but I figured I'd run it by you. We can play these starter decks, have you pick one and I'll pick the other, or I have a series of decks here that were actually from one of the World's Championships from back in 2002, and so we could use one of those top tier decks instead. I haven't looked at any of them, I don't know exactly what's going on with them, but they would at least be a little more refined than the starter decks would be.
Would it be from the Fellowship block?
Yes, yeah. This was okay. Yeah. 2002 was just a few months after Fellowship was released, and so that was what all of the that was what was current at the time.
Sure.
So which would you rather do, the starters or the championship decks, or one of each, or what do you want to do?
Let's go with the championship one since it'll be
okay.
Operational, yeah.
Cool. So I'll give you a few different choices of deck, for the most part, I'm going to give you the shadow choices because so the vast majority of these are actually Isengard decks, and so rather than ending up with both of us playing the same deck, I'll have you choose between one of the 3 shadows that are here. There is a single Nazgul deck. There are a few Moria decks. Yeah, this is one of them. And then, just scads of Isengard decks. So we would just pick one randomly, I think. So
do a Moria.
You want to do a Moria? Okay.
Sure.
So let me copy paste the list here. Okay, that should be straightforward. I'm hoping that none of these are particularly like strange decks that require anything weird to do.
So you're gonna name me the cards and I'll.
Nope, I have just in Discord here. I've pasted the entire list. You should be able to use that same import feature. Now, I know from having done this before that the guy that put these in here misspelled some of these, and so you're going to end up with a few cards that are incorrect. So I'm going to go ahead and paste the same list here, and we can fix the deck together and make sure that that it's all good on your end. So first thing that comes up here so actually go ahead and let me know once you've got that plugged in.
I'm looking at the list, but when you say plug in, what do you mean?
Okay, so I want you to copy that whole list that I sent you, which should be this whole thing here for the viewers, and then go ahead and navigate into the deck builder on GEMP.
I'm there.
Okay, and then I want you to click on the down arrow button up at the top, and then just paste the list into that window that shows up.
Check that out. Now it has adventure deck semicolon there. Do I delete that or that?
It doesn't matter actually. The importer is at least smart enough to ignore little bits like that.
Okay, color me impressed. That's cool.
Phelan will be very happy to hear. He's the one that worked on that.
Nice.
As I mentioned, as we can kind of see here in the preview over here, that some of these cards are not being detected, and that's because there are typos. So we'll just have to go through and start fixing them. So first is in the adventure deck, the Bridge of Khazad-dûm didn't show through. So up here at the top, we'll go ahead and select Fellowship Block PC, and we can then type in Bridge for Bridge of Khazad-dûm, and that'll show up the correct site. If you don't narrow down the sets, then you'll find that there are actually 2 copies that come up because the card was reprinted. So if you end up doing that accidentally, make sure that you pick the one that has a number. This is from Post Shadows, and the sites work a little bit differently.
We're also missing Dimril Dale.
Yes, precisely. So go ahead and add that.
Got it.
And now the problem is deck contains non-errata of an errated card. Oh, okay, we don't need to worry about that. But we can take a look here and see that the Free People side has 29 cards and the Shadow has 33. One of them is because they misspelled Elrond, Lord of Rivendell over here. So we'll just type in Lord of Rivendell. And we should have 3 copies of him. So just click on that Elrond 3 times and get that added into the deck. And then the other one is O Elbereth Gilthanel.
Now,
sure.
Question here. So on my screen, I'm seeing the red slash in the corner of that card.
Mm-hmm. So a red slash indicates that a card has been errated. If you were used to the physical card, then you might not necessarily recognize the game text that it has there. And in some cases, even then, the PC, the Players Council, has issued errata for that card to continue to try and rebalance it. In those cases, there will be a little symbol here down on the lower left with a little E with the last date that we errated it.
Gotcha.
So
3 copies of that?
Yeah, 3 copies of that.
Alright.
And then the other one that we need is 1 copy of O Elbereth Gilthoniel. So Elbereth is probably just the easiest to type in.
And how many?
Just 1.
Okay.
And then once we do that, we should get down here both Fellowship and the PC format should now show up as valid with errata automatically applied. There is a feature in here that will automatically swap out cards with their errated version, so long as you're hopping back and forth between the regular Fellowship block and the PC Fellowship. So you don't necessarily have to keep it particularly tight as far as that's concerned. because I mean the errata are relatively new, and it would be obnoxious to have to constantly edit your decks back and forth.
Yep.
So
I see one more validation warning. The deck contains card not from the valid set, and that's Elrond. Is that because it's been errated?
Yes. So that will show up in. Yeah, so the Fellowship block one says that, yeah, that contains a card not from the valid set. Yeah, so because the way that it's actually implemented behind the scenes is that we have made a brand new Elrond and put it in a special set number, and so it thinks, as far as the Fellowship block is concerned, that it can't work because of that, but it will automatically get handled, so long as it's...
GEMP will still let us play with it.
Yes, yeah.
Cool.
So once you've done that, you'll want to save your deck. So go ahead and come on up here, up to this little save icon, and then just give it the name of whatever you want to do. And then this should automatically be saved. If you want to double check that, or if you want to edit a deck that you have previously entered, then you'll come up here to the little briefcase icon, and it should show you a list of all the different decks that you've made. I highly recommend using a naming scheme that gives you the name of the format. So I use FOTR, FOTR, Fellowship of the Ring, at the beginning for Fellowship decks, because as you start to get more and more, it becomes kind of tedious to try and figure out what a particular deck is for. Like I have this one up here, Double Date. I made that last week, I think, and I can't remember already what format it's for.
I named it Training Wheels.
That works. So I am going to go grab a random deck over here and do the same process, so that we're not playing with the exact same deck. But it looks like Bridge didn't come through again for some reason. That's odd. Get that added in, and I think that was the only error with this particular one. So. Alright, so the name of the deck here, we will call it, so I don't know, this is fodder,
Wow.
Championship deck. And actually, while I'm thinking about it, I said I wasn't going to, but I'm going to import yours real quick so that I can...
Hard counter.
So that if we have questions about what's in your deck, I can pull it up over here on the side and
Right.
answer the questions. I wouldn't just beat up on a newbie.
I'm looking at this, at least the Fellowship side of the deck is not heavy on any particular race.
Yeah.
Interesting blend.
Yep. So it looks like with your particular Fellowship, we've got a primary mix of Elf and Gondor is going to be the kind of the heavy hitters. But I think that the shining knight here of your deck is going to be Gandalf, Friend of the Shirefolk, which I believe looks like that is going to be your starting companion. But here you can see it says Gandalf is strength +1 for each of these races you can spot on the Fellowship: Hobbit, Dwarf, Elf, and Man.
So in order to get that bonus, you want as many different ones on there.
Exactly. You'll always have a Hobbit because Frodo's always going to be there on the table, so he's strength 7 from that. But with an Elf and a Man, that'll pump him up to 9. Which
I've got Merry and Philibert Bolger.
Yep. Although, so in his case, it says each of these races you can spot in the Fellowship, so allies won't count. But and actually, since Frodo's on the table, you'll get the +1 bonus from him off the
ally, not companion. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So in the Fellowship is referring specifically to companions, but and then on your shadow side, one of the important things to take a look at, I think that these 3 cards right here are going to be the most important ones for you. So you've got the Goblin Runner. The thing to note is that he costs 1 Twilight when you put him in, but his text says when you play this minion, you may add 2. So actually, he generates Twilight by putting him down, which is going to be important. And then these other 2 cards here are a very common actually, Goblin Armory is in here as well. So these three cards make a bit of a mini engine. So you've got Goblin Scavengers. This is when you play this minion, you may play a weapon from your discard pile on your Moria Orc. The weapon you're probably going to pick is Goblin Scimitar here. This is when you play this possession, you may draw a card, which is, of course, very nice for continuing to draw more orcs, hopefully, to play down. But the real kicker is this down here, the Goblin Armory. Each time you play a Moria weapon, add one. Add one Twilight. So if you have 4 copies of these out on the table, and then you play a Goblin Scavengers, which pulls a Goblin Scimitar out, then that Scimitar is going to trigger all 4 and add a total of 4 Twilight to the table, meaning that you essentially had a free Goblin Scavengers, and you got +1 Twilight on top of that. So using this, you can hopefully get a big combination of lots of goblins out to hopefully try and just swarm and overwhelm the other side. So those will be the 3 big cards to pay attention to, and try to play around those. Most of the rest of these are situational things for various things. Like, well, I mean, Cave Troll of Moria. It's nice to just have a nice big minion to try and hit people. But yeah, so we will just dive right in, I think. So you've got your deck saved. I've got my deck saved. I've got the wiki up here in case we need to look anything up. So to begin a game here on GEMP, after you have built your deck, you're going to come over here and pick what format. So we're going to pick Fellowship Block PC, and then you are going to select the deck that you've already built. So I had my championship deck here, and then you pick a speed. I'm going to move it over here to Glacial, just because, for one thing, it's going to ward other people off. Nobody likes to play a Glacial game. Typically, though, you can probably get away with default if you are not literally learning the game, and then as you get better, you can go with Blitz, which most games that I play are 15 to 20 minutes long, so you don't need the super long limits that this affords. The numbers here are the total time on the chess clock, so if the game goes to 80 minutes, then it automatically ends and evaluates winner. And then the second number here is how long you can take per turn. So by default, if you take longer than 5 minutes, then you will automatically concede, and your opponent will win. So we'll stick to Glacial just in case, so that we can have long-winded explanations. And now that I've created my table, so yeah, you just click on the Create Table button after you've selected everything. Actually, let me just demonstrate. If you have something incorrect, like you have a Fellowship block and then you try to pick a movie block deck, it will give you an error down here that says your selected deck is not valid for this format. So it'll tell you whatever you did wrong. So I'm gonna, oops, that's his deck. Championship, Glacial, Create Table. All right. So now, Zach, all you'll need to do is take a look at the, yep, right there, and find my deck, or find my table and hit Join Table, and it will pop you in. And as you heard, that little blur there will tell you what's going on. So with official games like this, the starter decks technically have you follow a different process, but when you are trying to figure out who's going to go first, you do so by bidding burdens. I'll go over burdens in a moment, but they are a bad thing. If you get 10 of them...
that's rough. That's a really rough way to start off the game.
Yeah, there are some rough things about GEMP, and one of them is the... not even realizing, what it is that you're going into. If you don't know what burdens are, then that can be kind of rough. But so, anyway, 10 of them is enough to get Frodo corrupted, and you lose the game once you hit that point. So typically what I see is people bidding 2 to 3, although there are some decks out there that are very competitive that try to bid 7, and then because they absolutely positively need their first sight. But you can go ahead and bid whatever you like, or we could both bid 0, and then it will just randomly choose between us.
I'm down for that.
Okay. Sounds good.
I don't need any handicaps to start off with.
So it came to me, so I get to choose whether or not I'm going to go first or I'm going to go second. I'm going to go ahead and pick second. Or, actually, would it be better for you if I went first? Would you rather...
Yeah, me through your first turn.
Sure. Sounds good. So I will go first. So what's going to happen here is that we are going to see a bunch of things automatically go up on the screen. We'll see that my Site 1 was automatically played, and both of our Frodos and Wood Rings were laid down on the table. So next you have to pick your starting companionship. You don't get to start with everybody. The one rule here is that whatever combination of characters that you choose, you can have no more than a combined Twilight cost of 4. So it looks like both of us have Friend of the Shirefolk decks, so I'm willing to bet that these are designed to have Gandalf chosen first. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Gandalf, and then you get to pick who you're going to go with. I would advise Gandalf, because I think that's what your deck is built around. And then once you've done that, you will draw your first hand of 8 cards. Once you actually know what those cards signify, if you decide that they're no good, you can mulligan, which is to shuffle all of your cards back into your deck and then draw 6 more.
Just once at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, just once. It's actually something that I want to address at some point. There are some much better mulligan options nowadays that we could try taking a look at and experimenting with. But for now, that's the only option that you've got. Looking here, I think I will go ahead and keep this hand. Oh shoot! I hit yes, as in yes to mulligan. Well, okay. All right. So here in GEMP, we can see that there are a few different cards that are highlighted in blue. Those indicate cards that are available for you to use. So first thing I'm going to do is use my Site 1 over here, which has an action. Oh, let me pull up the phase list here. So we start with the Fellowship phase. The person who is playing Fellowship, playing the Free People side, goes first and plays whatever Fellowship actions he wants. I'm going to play all of my cards on the table that I want, and there's no restrictions to how much Twilight I put into the pool. So in the upper left-hand corner of all our cards, we have the Twilight cost. And this is one of the unique parts about the Lord of the Rings trading card game, is that while the Free People's player can put down however many cards they want, each of those little Twilight tokens that go in kind of represent the attention of the enemy. And so however many I put into the pool is going to be how many points that my opponent has to play with during their turn once we get to their shadow phase. And so
it's a really cool give and take.
Exactly. In particular, I like how it allows us to ramp up very quickly. Some games like Hearthstone, or Magic the Gathering, you start out, okay, I've got 1 mana available on turn 1. I've got 2 mana available on turn 2. And, outside of, cards allowing you to ramp up faster, it has kind of a very linear flow. But here, if you really want to do it, you can drop a bunch of Twilight on Site 1 and just start off gunning. And I really, really appreciate that about it. So first thing I'm going to do is utilize my Fellowship action that is given to me by the site. It's only going to be available while I'm here at this site, so I may as well take advantage of it now. It says add a burden to play Aragorn from your draw deck, which that's nice, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I get this little black icon here indicating 1 burden has gone on Frodo. We can see that his resistance has been reduced from the 10 that he has by default to 9. So once again, if I get 9 more burdens, then Frodo is corrupted and I lose the game. But we've had Aragorn played, and so he costs 4, and we see now that the Twilight pool has a total of 4 in it. I'm going to go ahead and keep going, so I'll just plop down all the companions I have here. So I'm going to play Arwen, so that's 2 more that goes in, Legolas, which is 2 more, and now we've got Flaming Brand, which is an infamous card back in the day, but we have applied a few different changes to it to hopefully reel it in a little bit. So this has to go on a ranger. So I mentioned before that there are keywords that are going to be on people. If we look over here at Aragorn, he's a ranger, and if we look at Arwen, she is also, this particular version of her is also a ranger. So I get to choose one of those 2 that's going to go on. So I will select my Flaming Brand, and then now it has restricted my little borders here to just the 2 valid targets. If there's only 1 valid target, then the game will automatically do it for you, rather than wasting your time. But here I'm going to go ahead and put it on Arwen, I think. So she's now strength 7, and I've got to kind of equalize the strength that I've got here going across the board. And I now have no more cards in my hand to play, but as you can see, there are still a couple of different actions that I could perform. One thing that you can always do in your Fellowship phase is you can transfer possessions between eligible bearers. So since the Flaming Brand can go on either Arwen or Aragorn, I could pay its cost of 1 once again to transfer it over to Aragorn so that he holds it instead. This can be useful if you have one guy that is just about to die, and you
That's the gauntlet.
Exactly. Try to get all the good gear off of him. Okay, so I have spent quite a bit. Most people are not going to drop quite this much Twilight here at the very beginning. I have put 9 Twilight down, but there's going to be even more. Yeah, there's going to be even more put into the pool here in a moment. So now that I'm all done with my Fellowship actions, even though I have some that are technically left, I'm going to come down here to this button that says Pass. And now it moves on down to the next phase. So first, the Fellowship is going to move from Site 1 to Site 2. And you pay a certain amount of Twilight into the pool for moving. So here on the new site, we have a number up here in the upper right-hand corner called the shadow number. So we add 1 for that site. This is going to ramp up quickly. By the end, you'll be adding 9 Twilight per site or so. And then you also add 1 Twilight per companion. So we added 1 for the site and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more Twilight for the companionship. And Zach is punishing me for having so much Twilight on the field. So when he played his Goblin Runner, it added 2, which paid off and allowed him to also play the Cave Troll of Moria. Now, just barely. Now, one thing to keep in mind with minions is that they have this home site down here. When you are playing a minion before you have arrived at its home site, you have to pay an additional roaming cost of 2. So this, even though you only paid 1 for the Goblin Runner, you actually paid 3 total, because we're not yet at its home site. You know, we're obviously over here in the Trollshaws. So yeah, now I've got this monster of a beast to deal with. So there's 2 things to keep in mind when you are fighting. First is the total strength, obviously, and second are the major keywords that the troll has. The real big one. So let me back up here. When we actually start fighting, we are going to be competing strength for strength. So 15 strength on this cave troll versus, say, the 6 strength of Legolas. The big one that I'm gonna have to worry about here is that if one side or the other is at least double of their opponents, then you don't apply wounds or anything. You just automatically overwhelm and kill the opponent. So this guy at 15 strength is definitely in range of killing, most of the people here in my Fellowship. If I put him up against Legolas,
that threshold is literally double.
Literally double. Yeah. So Arwen here right now has 7 strength against the 15 of the Cave Troll. She would get overwhelmed and killed in just 1 shot. So that's obviously something that I'm really gonna have to worry about here. The second thing I have to worry about are the keywords that this guy's got. So damage +1 means most of the time when you win a skirmish, you hit the other guy for 1 wound. The vitality here that is shown in the red orb indicates how many wounds that you have to take before you die. However, damage +1 means that he's going to be dealing out 2 wounds if he wins. And then Fierce, worst of all, for this whole situation, is that not only do I have to fight the Cave Troll once, I have to fight him twice. So this guy has the potential of either wiping out 2 people completely or dishing out 4 wounds among my party. So already, this is not looking like a great start for me here. Anyway, so while I was gabbing on about that, Zach played the Goblin Armory, which of course, like we mentioned before, is going to be very good for his Twilight generation, but it also has this response here that says, if a Moria Orc is about to take a wound, discard this condition to prevent that wound. You'll need to be very careful that you don't accidentally click on it in situations where you don't want to actually save the Orc that is on the table, which is probably going to be coming up here. This Goblin Runner is pretty weak, and I'll be taking care of it. But yeah, so Zach, once you've done with all your shadow options that you want to lay down, go ahead and click on that pass button that should be there in the lower left. And the next phase after shadow is maneuver, but the game detected that none of us had any maneuver actions, so it automatically skipped over. And so now we are in the archery phase. If you have any archery actions, you can perform them. So Legolas here has a very famous archery ability that we could use. Otherwise, if I'm not going to use them, which I'm not, I'm going to go ahead and pass. And then
can you tell me why you wouldn't use his?
So his particular ability is exert Legolas to wound a minion. Legolas does not add to the Fellowship Archery total. So this is called directed wounding, which is actually very powerful and flexible. So I would put 1 wound on Legolas, and I would be able to pick where I wanted to put a wound among your guys. However, Cave Troll of Moria has 4 stinking vitality. So even if I did that twice, which is...
you want to soften him up first?
Well, it would soften him, I suppose, but I'm not going to be winning the skirmishes against you. So there's not actually going to be any point to doing that. If I had a way of producing 2 more wounds, that I might consider it. Or if you had a particularly good ability that I didn't want you to use, or if you had a very powerful guy that only had 1 vitality, I might consider doing that to try and snipe the guy before we even start. But
Gotcha.
For now, it would just be a waste of my vitality, and a cave troll at half health is just as dangerous because it doesn't change his strength at all. So I will save the wounds because I will be getting quite a few anyway. But so after you pass on the actions, so let me back up a moment here and talk about phases in general. Every phase is going to have automatic actions and manual actions. So the manual actions are those that are indicated here by the bold word. So the archery here on Legolas. It was optional. I could do it. I could not do it. Once everybody has passed on their manual actions, then automatic actions occur. So in the archery phase, that's just counting up how many archers are on each side and sending an arrow across. So we have one archer on our side with Legolas, and so we can see here in the little readout that there was an archery fire, a fellowship archery total of 1. There's no archers on their side, so I didn't have to worry about it. And Zach has assigned that arrow to go on the cave troll. You get to pick where those arrows happen to land among your creatures.
That's
generous.
generous.
And so, yes, and that's really why this guy is powerful, because rather than letting you choose 1 wound, I could have chosen where to put that wound, which in certain situations may make or break what's about to happen. But
Right.
so now that we're done with that, we move on to the assignment phase. There are no assignment actions, so we immediately moved on to the automatic portion of this, which is that I have to now take his minions and assign them to my guys to fight. The Goblin Runner here is not a problem. We're going to go ahead and just stick him against Aragorn, I think. The real issue here is this Cave Troll, of course. I can't put him up against Legolas or Arwen. He will automatically kill them. So I think the real option here is Gandalf for now. So you do that. So just by clicking on the... let's see, how do we undo that? Is it... I guess it's not really a way to undo. But to assign, you just click on the green bordered minion, and then you click on the minion that you want to assign it to. You can only assign 1 to 1. So don't try to put multiple minions up against your companions. The game won't let you do it. But then once you have completely assigned all of their minions to your companions, then you can come down here and click on Done. Be very sure that you actually have all of the minions where you want them to go before you do that, because the game has no take-backsies. It's very easy to lose a game that way. So, once we have done the assignment, now that everybody has been assigned, we're going to move on to the skirmish phases. Each of these individual assignments here is going to have 1 skirmish phase. So let's go ahead and do Aragorn first. So I'm just going to click on the green bordered Aragorn. And so now, both of us are going to have a chance to play skirmish abilities. Now, the way that the game is set up, if we come over here to settings real quick, we can see that it does not automatically skip through skirmish phase actions like it does for maneuver and archery and other things. Mostly this is an information thing. You don't want to let your opponent know that you have no options, so it's going to force you to manually pass. Neither of us have any actions here, but we don't necessarily want to give that information up. So I clicked on pass, and as soon as Zach clicks on pass, it is going to resolve the skirmish. So Aragorn here has 8 strength, that little sword and shield icon, and the poor Goblin Runner only has 5. So barring any twists, any changes from someone playing a skirmish ability, Aragorn should win, and then he will apply 1 wound to the Goblin Runner. Boom, as we see. So here, down here in the log, we can see... Sorry?
Since the Goblin Runner only had 1 health.
Exactly. The 1 wound was enough to kill it. Yeah, and the minion was automatically discarded. So all of that we can see happened over here in the log. Oh, and so another thing too is that sometimes if things are going very quickly, or if automatic actions are occurring, you can see that log down in the lower left. There are also links that you can click on. So if there was an event that was played real quick, you can click on it to try and see, oh, okay, that's why such and such a thing happened. That can be very useful. And so now that we've had one skirmish, we're going to move on to the next one. So we'll click on Gandalf here. So we can see that he has a strength of 15 and damage +1 up against a strength of 9. I have no special abilities that I can do to pull myself out of this mess, so I'm going to hit pass. And then as soon as Zach passes, we are going to see that the skirmish has completed. Because he was damage +1, I got hit with the original wound +1 more. Which is leaving Gandalf now pretty much on the edge of death. If I were to attempt to assign him to the Cave Troll again, he would die from the 2 new wounds that are coming. So my only real choice here is to assign him to Aragorn. So we're going to go ahead and just keep clicking through, and we're now at the point of resolving the skirmish. So I will pass my actions, Zach will pass his actions, and now there's 2 shiny new wounds on Aragorn. So now we have arrived at the regroup phase. During the regroup phase, once again, you sometimes have regroup actions that you can perform, but once everybody has performed them all, or in this case the game passed for us automatically, we then move on to those automatic actions. The first thing that happens is that the shadow player is going to reconcile his hand, which is to say that he's going to draw back up to 8 cards. As the Free People's player, I have a choice. I can do one of 2 things. I can either decide to end my turn, and then I will reconcile my hand, draw back up to 8 cards, and then we will switch, and Zach will be the Free People's player, and I will play Shadow. Or I can choose to continue running. Obviously, now, if you choose to continue to run, all the minions that are currently on the table will stay on the table. In this case, that is very bad. Like, I was, I wasn't able to actually do anything to hold off this Cave Troll. I'm going to have to fight him again, plus whatever he happens to play next turn. So, I, of course, am not going to move down. So I'm going to choose no very carefully. And then now I have my chance to reconcile. So when you reconcile, you have the opportunity to discard 1 card if you want. And then as soon as you're done with that, after you have selected a card or you just hit done, it'll automatically draw back up to 8 cards for you. So now we have reversed roles. Over here we can see that the white highlight has changed from my name over to his. So Zach is now playing through his hand. So it looks like he's played Aragorn, Heir to the White City. We have very similar similar fellowships here, it looks like. Oh, and then it looks like he accidentally clicked on Frodo to utilize his ability. Yeah, so that's that.
What was that?
So, Frodo's ability here says, exert another companion who has the Frodo signet to heal Frodo.
Gosh, well, that was stupid.
And, so, and yeah, this is definitely one of the downsides of GEMP. Obviously, in a real game, I would say never mind, undo. But because GEMP is enforcing the rules here, it's going to now force him to exert one of his characters to heal Frodo, even though Frodo has no wounds on him. So you'll just have to pick where to stick that wound.
I just lost the game.
I mean, we'll see. You had a pretty killer first shadow phase, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay, so question here.
Mm-hmm.
Elrond is not a companion,
right?
His home is Site 3.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any reason to play him now?
Yes. So, first off, it is usually safer to be plopping Twilight down on the table early in the game rather than late in the game, because we are not yet at people's home sites, and so it's more difficult to get minions down. The other reason, however, is that all of the abilities that he's got on his face can still be used. So, for instance, he's got that Fellowship ability. You should now be able to click on Elrond and utilize it. It says, exert Elrond twice to draw a card, which is just straight up a benefit for you. But once we do get to his home site, which is indicated in the middle bar there, once you get to Site 3, he will be able to fight just so long as you are at his home. So once we make it to Rivendell, Elrond will be able to skirmish minions just like your companions.
But then before and after that site, he does not get involved.
Correct.
Okay.
But you can still utilize his abilities for the rest of the game. Yeah. So that is really the benefit of these allies here, is that they are some sort of ability that you're going to want to use, and then occasionally they're useful during the skirmish. When you happen to be at their home. Another thing to keep in mind, which is an action that you always have available during fellowship phases, is that if you have a copy of a character, you can discard that to automatically heal them, just once. So if you
in the game,
once just heal them once per discard. So if you have three more copies of Elrond in your hand, you can discard all three of them to heal them 3 times.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Okay.
All right. So he moved down and to the next site, and then just like last time, 3 Twilight was added. 1, 2, 3. 1 for each of the companions that he's got. They added 1 to the pool because of the site that was being moved to, and then Heir to the White City here has text that says each time the Fellowship moves during the Fellowship phase, remove 1. So that's kind of just, he's a ranger, he knows what he's doing, he knows how to remove the attention of the enemy. So we are now here left with 11 Twilight. So
it
let's
would have been
see.
12 and then he removed 1.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So I've got a bunch of Uruks. What do we want to do? So I'm going to pull up my calculator because I am terrible at math, and this is going to be useful. Put that down here. I don't want that. Stupid thing. I'll just stick you right there, manually if I have to. Alright, so I have a total of 11 Twilight available to me. I have a couple different minions that are 3, 5, 6, and then a Saruman, but I probably don't want to play him this early. So I'm probably going to want to play one of these 5s. Now, I mentioned the roaming penalty before of 2, which means that I'm probably only going to be able to get 1 guy out here. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just get one of these Troop of Uruk-hai. So now, as you can see, as soon as I did that, none of my other minions are highlighted anymore because, unlike me, Zach had the sense to not flood the pool with a bunch of stuff right at the very beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and pass. I have no more shadow actions to play. And so we move right on past the maneuver phase because there's no maneuver actions. And then, as we can see here in the readout, Archery Fire, Fellowship 0, Minion 0, it detected that there's no archers on the table, so we automatically went to the assignment phase. So now Zach has to choose who is going to be skirmishing my troop here. So he's got a strength of 9, a vitality of 4, which is actually very high for Uruk-hai. And just like the cave troll, he is damage plus 1. So when he fights somebody, he's going to be dealing 2 wounds instead of just 1. But he's not fierce, so he's only going to have to fight him the once. But in addition to that, he's also got a passive ability there. A character skirmishing this minion does not gain strength bonuses from weapons. There's no weapons on the table for now, but that could become very relevant later once our characters have been kitted out. So, yeah.
Okay, so it's having me click again.
Yeah, so you first click on the minion, and then you click on which companion you want to assign them to.
And it's been assigned, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and now it still highlights.
Yes, because it's to give you the opportunity to mull things over, and you can assign things temporarily and then decide, I don't like that arrangement, I'm going to rearrange. Maybe I don't want him to go against Gandalf, I'm going to put him on Aragorn. And then once you have everything lined up perfectly the way that you want it to go, then you click on pass or ready or whatever it is. That button there that's in the middle. Okay, so now you choose which skirmish to do. Obviously there's only the one, so now we are strength of 9 and damage plus 1 up against Aragorn, who's a strength of 8. So as soon as we both pass our skirmish actions, because once again neither of us really has anything available, the troop is going to win that skirmish, and he applies 2 wounds onto Aragorn. And so now we are at the regroup phase, and we are once again going to be faced with the choice of whether or not to move.
So again, if I choose to move, your Uruks follow me.
Mm-hmm.
If I choose to regroup,
then it's like you kind of turned around and killed them all or gave them the slip or something, and they'll get discarded.
Okay.
So this is really, I think, where kind of the meat of the strategy comes in. You know, does my opponent have nothing? Does he have a whole bunch of stuff? I've even seen bluffs where people play nothing on one turn, and so people think, oh, he's got nothing in his hand, and then double move, and then someone
Just drop
with 2 sites worth of Twilight, and I'm just going to hit you with everything in my hand. Yeah, so this is really where the mind games come in. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and reconcile, so I get to pick... I'm going to go ahead and discard that and draw back up to 8. And now Zach has to carefully consider... Okay, so Zach has decided to stay. So now that he has stayed, he's going to reconcile his hand back up to 8, and then we now reverse roles. So I am now back to playing as the Fellowship player. So first you'll have the option, like I mentioned, to discard a card if you want, and otherwise you hit pass and then it will drop to 8. Perfect. So now we are back to my Fellowship phase, right over here. So I am going to play Galadriel, Lady of Light. So she's an ally, of course, and she's got this ability, Exert Galadriel to play an elf. That elf's Twilight cost is -1. So I'm going to click on her to use her ability, and then automatically play the only elf that was in my hand, which is Rumiel here. So now we have put down 3 Twilight for Galadriel, and then 2 -1 equal, just the 1 extra for Rumiel. I could move the Flaming Brand, and I could try to heal Frodo with his ability, but neither of those are things I want to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit pass. So now we have moved on to Rivendell Terrace. This, as you can see, is gray, which indicates that it is a sanctuary. Sanctuaries are going to have less Twilight than normal being generated, so we can see it's only got 0 coming out. And at the start of my next turn, if I end my turn here, at the start of my next turn I will be able to heal some of my companions, which is obviously going to be necessary. I have gotten very bloody up to this point.
I'm feeling that same way.
So, in spite of the fact that I didn't play all that much, and that there was nothing coming from the site, the fact that I have 5 companions out already plopped 5 more Twilight into the pool, and so he's got actually a little bit to work with. Normally, by this point, it's not uncommon to see just 2 or 3 Twilight by site 3, but
so Sanctuary doesn't mean that no skirmish occurs. It just means healing can occur at the end of.
Yep, so long as I end my turn here, I get a good night's sleep, and when I wake up next turn, I will be able to heal a bit. So he plays a Goblin Runner. We're still not yet to site 4, so he cost 1, and then the additional penalty of 2. So he cost 3 total, but then added 2 more into the pool, meaning that he only cost 1. And then he goes ahead and plays a Goblin Scavengers. And if there wasn't already a card, oh, there we go. There's the Goblin Scimitar. So now that he's played the Goblin Scimitar, obviously the strength bonus is added to the Scavengers, which is nice. But then he's also going to draw a card, and he gets that little engine going of the Goblin Armory, generating Twilight from that.
Okay.
All right. So this is where these archery actions really start to shine.
Oh, because I should have thought of that. So I'm seeing that I have great strength, but only the 1 health on the Scavengers.
Exactly.
So I just applied a Scimitar, which is going to be useless now.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, obviously, I am going to try my best to kill you before we even skirmish. But because the Scavengers pull Goblin Scimitars out of the discard pile, it's actually going to be a good thing to have as many Scimitars as you can get in the discard.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's actually not. I mean, this is a foregone conclusion, I think, just looking at this. But it's actually not a terribly bad thing for you. You need to set up so that by the time we get to site 7 or 8, you'll be in very good shape. So I am actually going to use the ability over here on my ally, on Rumiel. Archery, exert Rumiel to wound an orc. So I'm going to go ahead and use that ability, and then I get to pick which orc I'm going to do. Of course, I'm going to pick the big one. And then Zach has the opportunity to burn his Goblin Armory there to put that in the discard pile to prevent that wound. I would advise not doing that because I'm just going to continue doing it. And so it won't get you anything more than one additional wound on a guy. And the Armory, like I mentioned before, is very important to building up that Twilight engine so that you can be generating as much Twilight as you need.
And is that Armory a one-time use?
So the Twilight ability will happen, like it says, each time you play a Moria weapon. However, the response action, if a Moria Orc is about to take a wound, discard this condition to prevent that wound. So you'll be putting it out of play, and then you will no longer be able to use that passive Twilight generation. It's got two uses, and eventually the Armory could very well be the clincher that wins you the game. But for now, it would be a waste.
You gotta save that response for the opportune moment.
Exactly. Yeah.
This ain't it.
This ain't it. Yeah, when you've got 9, orcs on the table, and I can handle 8, but I can't handle 9. That's the situation where you want to be burning it.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, so I have plenty of archery actions I could continue to play, but I'm not going to do any of them. I'm going to pass. And so, once again, we find ourselves with one little arrow getting plinked over to the other side, and because there's only one target for it to go on, that poor runner gets killed. So, yeah, elves are good at archery. It turns out. So now, exactly. So now Zach is going to reconcile, and then I'm going to choose whether or not I'm going to move forward. I'm not going to, because I want to get the advantages of the Sanctuary here. So let's stick around. Oh dear.
It says choose cards to heal.
Yes, so Elrond has a few different abilities here. So if we shift click on him, it says at the start of each of your turns, heal up to 3 allies whose home is site 3. So up to means that you get to pick 0, 1, 2, or 3. 0 is an option if for whatever dumb reason you didn't want to heal him. So you're going to want to click on Elrond to make sure that he is healed, and then hit continue. Yeah, there you go.
And then it highlights a bunch of things purple now.
Purple. Do you want to show me your screen?
You
can just give me a screenshot, or you can stream, either way.
So get back into here. I just threw the screenshot in the voice chat there.
Yep, that works. All right, let's take a look here. So each of these actions are now all of your fellowship actions that you have available to you. So you can play things out of your hand. You can utilize... oops, I tried to shift click. That doesn't work on a screenshot. You can utilize Elrond's fellowship action. You can utilize Frodo's fellowship action, which you accidentally did last time. So this is just the normal...
It's just back to me.
Yeah, it's back. Yeah, back to you playing fellowship actions.
Still resolving things, but no, I'm just back to my fellowship turn.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Now that I've revealed my hand to you.
I tried not to look too closely.
All right. How many different third sites are there in this set?
There are probably 4 or 5, if I had to guess. I can look
Since
it up
I
real
didn't
quick.
build this, I don't even remember what my third site was.
Right. I can actually look at that for you. So yours had the same for some... Oh wait, this was your... Okay, so the way that it works when you're playing down sites is that if you go first, you get to pick your site 1. But then when you move forward, if you happen to be front in the path, like I was, then it's your opponent that gets to pick the battleground.
Gotcha.
And so these are actually both of your site 2 and your site 3, and it'll only start going over to my site 3 if you pass me up and start
Gotcha.
accelerating ahead of me.
That's a very interesting mechanic.
Yeah, playing it as a primarily as a shadow player, I like it. You know, being able to choose the sites because there are some very powerful shadow sites that work in my favor. So I tend to prefer to play from behind and let my opponent run forward and run across all the spikes I put in the road. But the alternative is, of course, very viable to just run like heck and deal with the problems as they come up.
Okay.
Sam is another very infamous card. You've got a lot of errated cards here. Sam in particular used to be, I wouldn't say problematic, but very powerful for what he does. Okay, so now he's gone ahead and moved to that site 3, and so this is much more like what I would expect to see at a site 3 with just five or less twilight here. So now I got to pick what the heck I'm going to do. So I'm going to lay down Saruman's Ambition. So this is a condition. Conditions are generally going to go in your support area. I can't believe I haven't mentioned that yet. So you've got this section here that indicates your fellowship, but then you've also got this support area that contains both your fellowship cards and your shadow cards that are just sort of changing the the conditions of the battlefield. Your allies hang out there as well. If you find that the order of those cards isn't to your liking, you can click hold on a card and move it. I would be very careful about doing that if it is a card that is currently active. I have screwed myself over trying to move a card and then accidentally activating its effect. So try to do that between turns or at a time when it's not going to accidentally trigger.
Click and hold.
Click and hold, and then you can scoot them around. And this is per. You can actually arrange your opponent's cards as well if it helps. This is totally on your side, so it doesn't affect anything on mine if you rearrange things however you like. So I'm gonna go ahead. I don't really have any much of a choice here. I'm gonna play the Urk Warrior. So he costs 3, but we're not yet at site 5, his home site, so I have to pay that penalty of 2, meaning I'm left with nothing.
Well, thank goodness, because he's a beast in and of himself.
Yeah, this is actually pretty average for what the Urks are going to look like. Strength of 9-ish, damage plus 1.
Mama.
So, yeah. Now, if you get an elf out, your Gandalf is going to be strength 9, which would be close to being able to deal with it. So, in the situation where there's a tie, the shadow side wins. Fellowship has a lot of other advantages, so you do have to keep that in mind. But being at 9 strength is going to be able to take care of a number of things. Anyway, so after I played that, the game automatically skipped past maneuver and archery, so now we're back to assignment. So Zach here is going to pick where to put that Urk Warrior.
Damage plus 1 means wound.
Yes, so I'm going to be giving you 2 wounds if he wins.
Oh.
Now, next turn, if you stay at the Sanctuary, which obviously that's the correct move here, when you wake up at the Sanctuary at the beginning of your next turn, you will be able to remove 5 wounds in any combination from your companionship. So here, even though it looks a little dire, where your a bunch of wounds are being laid out, what I see here is you've got a clean board coming up next turn. You're going to be removing 5 wounds.
5 of those.
Exactly. Yeah. All 5 are going to be removed. As from a certain perspective, I haven't done anything to you this game yet, because all these wounds are about to get wiped, and so hopefully I have started to set up the board and get my cards where I need them to be, because I haven't actually done anything to your fellowship. But the flip side is also true. You started to get set up, but you haven't actually done any lasting damage to me just yet.
All right, so play regroup action or pass. I just go ahead and hit pass.
So you must have a regroup action somewhere. You can use it if you want.
It's not one that I want to use.
Okay, in that case, yeah, just go ahead and pass. Those manual options are always optional. So I am getting a little clogged here in my hand. As painful as this is, I'm going to discard a Saruman.
When will that healing take place?
That will be at the beginning of your next fellowship phase. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah, so as you reconcile, it's going to flip over to me being on the Fellowship side, and the next time that I reconcile, you're gonna wake up in Revendell. Okay. All right. So this is a situation that may come up from time to time. We have two different effects that are happening automatically at the beginning of the turn. The Free People's, if there is ever a situation where there is a tie in timing, then the Free People's player gets to decide in what order they go. In this case, it's completely academic because it doesn't matter. So I'm going to go ahead and select Galadriel first. So Galadriel's effect says that I get to heal up to 3 allies whose home side is 6. And then the Sanctuary automatically triggers after that. So I get to remove up to 5 wounds. So there we go. So now...
Beauty.
Yeah, so now we are nice and set. So I'm going to go ahead and play an armor on Aragorn. Armor is going to be very useful in those situations if a troll comes back around. So the ability here says bearer takes no more than 1 wound during each skirmish phase. So I effectively get to ignore those damage bonuses and treat them just like a regular minion. If I had had that before, the cave troll would have been a much less scary prospect. But yeah, so that's all the Fellowship actions I've got to play. So we're going to go ahead and move forward. So now things are starting to get a little dangerous for me. So now we have started to enter into Moria at Site 4. So he no longer has to pay that additional roaming cost. So his orcs are about to get a whole lot cheaper. We've also got this ability text here that says each companion and minion bearing a hand weapon is damage +1. And like I mentioned, his deck is built around getting those scimitars on goblins, so if I'm not going to win against them, I'm going to have to worry about those additional wounds coming in. On the flip side, my Arwen is also damage +1 because she's got that hand weapon of the Flaming Brand. Alright, so he plays that good old Scavengers. He's going to use his ability to pull a weapon from the discard pile, which is of course the Scimitar, which is going to trigger the Goblin Armory, putting more Twilight on the table, and then the Scimitar draws another card. We are going to be seeing that loop quite a bit here over the course of this game. And so he plays the Goblin Warrior. When you play this minion, you may discard a Dwarven ally or Dwarven condition. That's one of those things that you include just in case your opponent is playing Dwarven, which I'm not. But, it never hurts. Aha, now we've got another Scimitar, which is again generating more Twilight, allowing him to draw another card.
Okay.
Alright. So now...
So I left 4 unspent.
You left 4 unspent, yes. Which, most of the time you'll want to spend as much as you possibly can, but there are legitimate reasons for not spending to the max. One reason is skirmish events. All of your shadow cards are going to cost Twilight for the most part, including events. So if you had a special sneaky event that you wanted to use to win a skirmish, you're going to have to make sure that the proper amount of Twilight is left behind, or you won't be able to pay for it. And another reason is sometimes just to make it a little bit less enticing for me to move again, because that's 4 additional Twilight that...
It rolls over.
It rolls over, exactly. The Twilight and the minions roll over, making it that much more dangerous. Now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Ramil again, and I'm going to try and snipe down that Scavenger. Zach will again have to decide whether or not he wants to burn his armory. This is going to get a little tedious for him. I'm sure he's going to have to do that every single time that I wound someone. But I think I'm going to go ahead and just do that puppy again. Ramil has 3 vitality, so I have exerted him twice. He's now exhausted, which means that I cannot use his ability anymore until he gets healed up. But, yeah.
When you get down to 1 left, is that exhausted?
Yes, yeah. So exhausted means that you've only got 1 vitality left. So exert, as a verb, is essentially self-wounding, but you are not allowed to exert yourself to death. If you're exhausted, you no longer have the energy to exert yourself. So, do I want to make another move? You know what? Yes. I'm going to go ahead and move. Now, Fellowship of the Ring is a little bit unique in that the Bridge of Khazad-dûm is the only Site 5 that there is. So now we are going to see Zach probably pulling out the Balrog. I believe that the version of the Balrog that you have is going to require that you have a Goblin out first, so I hope you drew a Goblin or have a Goblin in your hand. Because if not, this will basically be a free move for me.
Well, you lucked out, man.
All right. sometimes the gamble works. Oh well, I guess we'll have to see the Balrog when it's my turn. But so yeah, sometimes this just happens. This is definitely one of the things you have to worry about when building your deck is not utilizing all the Twilight. In this case, it was just luck of the draw. It sounds like he's got a lot of Fellowship cards in his hand, so his Shadow Side is screwed a little bit. But so now it is time to reconcile. Ay, ay, ay. And now we flip. Zach is now waking up in Rivendell. As we can see, I've started to pull ahead. I have moved twice when he's only moved once.
Here's something that seems actually important. So if I use Elrond's ability, I can then heal him after he's used his ability?
No. So the timing there on his ability here says at the start of each of your turns, heal up to 3 allies. So it's going to be now that you do it, and then later you will be able to activate your ability to during the normal Fellowship phase. Technically, at the start of your turn comes before the Fellowship phase.
Okay.
And so Zach is probably being presented with the exact same screen I was, where he has to pick whether he wants to do the Elrond automatic action or the Sanctuary.
What I'm getting at is if I use Elrond now, it's going. Oh no, that's a different ability. Never mind.
Yep. Yeah. So both of these have to happen. You're just choosing what order they go in. And like I said, in this case, it's a trivial. Obviously you want to heal Elrond. And then obviously you're going to want to heal all 5.
Whose home is Site 3?
Yes.
It was only...
And yeah, for now, he's the only home Site 3 ally that you have out. So.
And now it's my Fellowship phase.
Yep. Yep. And so now you've used your Sanctuary. Yeah, so now all of your Fellowship abilities are available. You can play down more companions. Oh, Aragorn's Bow. Here we go. So, Aragorn's Bow is a very powerful possession that basically turns him into Greenleaf over here. You can exert Aragorn to wound a minion. And if you choose not to do that, he's an archer. So, yeah, definitely very powerful. Particularly when you have both Aragorn with his bow and Greenleaf on the table. That gives you quite a bit of directed power to use. So he's drawn a card with Elrond and decided to move on. And so now it is my turn to lay stuff down. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. We're not yet at Site 5, so my guys are still roaming, which is a bit obnoxious. So I'm going to go ahead and do... I'm going to do this. I'm going to lay down Saruman, and then I'm going to use this event, Abandoning Reason for Madness. So it would have only shown up on the screen very briefly for him, so if he needs to, Zach can come down here into the log and he can click on that link to see what it was.
I have done, for
yes.
Sure.
So this says, spot an Isengard minion to discard up to 3 cards from hand and draw an equal number of cards. So I'm going to clear out some of the craft I got here.
Now, when you spot something, that doesn't have to be in play. It can be in your hand.
No, spot specifically means that it has to be in play.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so this said spot an Isengard minion. Saruman here is an Isengard minion. Minion is referring to the card type, and Isengard is referring to the culture. It may sound a little backwards to refer to Saruman as a minion. You may think that he's the head honcho. But yeah, that's just technically looking at the card type.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and discard that, and yeah, well, that's not going to come into play, and that. So I get to pick up to 3 cards. I'm going to pick 2. So both of those get discarded, and I draw 2 more. Okay. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and pass. Now Saruman is a bit unique. If you take a look at him, he says Saruman may not take wounds during the archery phase and may not be assigned to a skirmish. He's hoity-toity, he does not get his hands dirty. So even though he is here on the table, you're not going to have to
fight him at all.
Fight him. Nope. Now, we did take a pit stop here in the maneuver phase because he does have a maneuver action available, but there are no Uruk-hai for me to use it on, so I'm just going to keep passing, and this is going to automatically move forward all the way to the regroup phase.
So I pass the archery phase because there's nothing that can be done.
Exactly, because he specifically cannot take wounds during the archery phase. Yep. So even though there was an arrow, it doesn't hurt him. So now I'm going to go ahead and reconcile, and now Zach has to make a choice. Does he move with Saruman on the table, or does he take it slow and pump the brakes?
You're already one ahead of me,
Mm-hmm.
because you moved. There's only 2 Twilight there.
So once you move, it'll be 6 from the site and 4 from your companions. So that'll be adding 10 minus 1 for Aragorn. So there will be a total of 11 pool.
That's plenty to work with.
It is.
Now, because I haven't taken any wounds, that seems like good reason to press on.
Yeah.
I'm not hurting.
You are definitely you're perfectly healthy.
I mean, except for Elrond there that I.
Well, but Elrond won't even. Elrond won't contribute to the fight anyway. So his
time is done.
Right. So his vitality there is more of a resource than anything.
Yeah.
You'll just want to keep him as low as possible to keep drawing out cards whenever you can.
Yeah. Well. Let's do it.
Alrighty then. So now...
Bring on the pain.
Exactly. So I'm going to... I have something that is going to be able to pull from my discard pile, so I need to inspect that. The way that I do it is coming up here to the little plus icon next to my name. And then there are 3 piles here. One of them is my adventure deck, which is bugged at the moment. I don't understand why it doesn't show anything. The one in the middle here is your dead pile, which we haven't really gone into. And the one here on the left is your discard pile. You're going to have to resize the windows so that you don't have those teeny tiny cards. But once you do, you can take a look and see what exactly you have available. Okay. So I'm going to put down an Uruk Captain. And he's got an ability that says Shadow. Remove 1 and exert Uruk Captain to play an Uruk-hai from your discard pile. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to lay down this guy, I think.
Not him again.
And then...
I don't like that sound.
Tricky, tricky. I think I will do this. Let's just get that second one out there. Alright, so now the field is loaded. So my shadow phase has ended. We are now moving on to the maneuver phase, which hasn't really come up much in the past, but Saruman here has a maneuver phase. Now Saruman is interesting. He's got 2 main abilities here that both benefit Uruk-hai, but in different ways. The first one is maneuver, exert Saruman to make an Uruk-hai fierce until the regroup phase. So I could theoretically exert him 3 times right now because he's got 4 vitality and make each of these Uruk-hai fierce. They're all damage plus 1.
And I can't attack him. So.
Yeah, exactly. You can't attack him directly, so him being exhausted wouldn't necessarily be a problem. But on the other hand, His vitality here is a resource because the second ability that he has is a responsibility that says if an Uruk-hai is about to take a wound, exert Saruman to prevent that wound. So I have to decide, do I want to make my guys fierce, or do I want to keep him in reserve to be able to prevent Zach from killing them, or what combination of the two do I need to make available? So I'm going to go ahead and just go all in, I think. I'm going to exert 3 times and make each of these 3 guys all fierce. Now,
we will not survive this.
Now, we are going to move on from the maneuver phase to the archery phase, and yes, Zach has now seen that he can use that Aragorn's bow to start sniping fools. So now he's got a choice. He could exert twice more, because he can utilize that Aragorn's bow as much as he needs to, and snipe one of the Uruk warriors out from underneath him.
That leaves Aragorn with 1. No.
That does leave him exhausted. Yeah. On the other hand, let's think about it math-wise. So this Uruk warrior is going to do 2 damage, and then because he's fierce, you're going to have to fight 2 more. You're probably going to have to deal with 2 more. So that's a total of 4 wounds. So you can choose to take 2 wounds on Aragorn now, and
eliminate 1.
And yeah, and eliminate a guy. So you effectively are only taking 2 wounds instead of 4, which is what you'd have to take if you fought him normally.
Yeah, I might as well.
Yeah. So those are the sorts of trade-offs that you have to deal with. But this really does show how Aragorn's bow and Legolas Greenleaf, their directed wounding can be very, very powerful to threading the needle, as it were, from difficult situations. All right, so then we come down to Uruk Warrior versus Gandalf. It's 9-8. So once Zach passes and then I pass. And now you got a choice to make, because no matter who that Uruk warrior goes up against, they're going to die.
Yeah.
Now, typically, this is actually what Sam is kind of built for. I mean, obviously, you want to use him to peel off burdens. Shield? Yeah, that's kind of. I mean, it may be a bit strange to think about, but it's either that or Aragorn or Gandalf, and those other 2 are going to be.
They have much more useful abilities.
Exactly. And typically by this time, a lot of people would have utilized his ability a couple of times already and peeled off a bunch of burdens, so he'd be exhausted anyway. So it's like, well, I may as well use him as a speed bump there. Okay.
But my Frodo hasn't been burdened at all yet. So.
Not yet. Nope, not in the slightest. And at first that may seem like the obviously correct way to go. You don't want to be anywhere near corruption, but unless you're fighting up against a deck that cares about it, those burdens are resources to use. You know, yeah. if you make it to the end and you have 9 burdens, who cares? Like that's just as good a win. Right. The only time you really have to be careful about it is when the opponent is playing Nazgul or something like that. Now, we should actually take a detour here and talk about burdens and how you normally get them before it actually comes up. So the One Ring has a special ability here. Two clauses, 2 paragraphs. So the first one is response. If bearer is about to take a wound, he wears the One Ring until the regroup phase. So you put it on. And then while it's on, while wearing the One Ring, each time the ring bearer is about to take a wound, add 2 burdens instead. So you can see how you can effectively turn a lot of wounds into a lot of burdens instead, which can keep your fellowship happy and healthy, which is definitely a very viable strategy. A lot of people end up using their ring bearer as archery pincushions to turn all those wounds into burdens and keep everybody in fighting shape.
It says each time the ring bearer is about to take a wound.
Correct. Yeah, so
you match him up instead of one of your other companions.
Exactly. If there was a skirmish,
see.
yeah. Now, obviously, Frodo is someone who's ill-equipped to fight. He starts out with just a 3 strength, and that 1 ring gives him 1 more, so he's only at 4, meaning that he can fight someone at a maximum of 7 strength without getting overwhelmed. Frodo, yeah.
You haven't even played one that's that low.
Yeah,
all your stinking Uruks
are beefy.
10.
Yeah, exactly. So it's important to note that even though wounds can be turned to burdens, they do not do anything against overwhelming. So it is possible to still get overwhelmed, and ring or no ring, you still fall to the floor, which will lose you the game if Frodo dies. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and lay down Last Alliance of Elves and Men on Aragorn here. So it's a tale. It says, bearer must be a Gondor man, limit 1 per bearer. Bearer is strength +1 for each elf you can spot, limit +3. I can spot 4 elves here, Arwen, Legolas, Galadriel, and Ramil.
Yep.
So he is now, as you can see, that strength of 11. So he's starting to get rather beefy. Which, I mean, obviously, it's not a bad thing to be strong, but you've got a lot of little guys. So if he's strength 11 or strength 8 up against a strength 5, who cares? He still wins. There's only so much benefit that it can give me against your deck. But anyway.
Overkill.
Yeah, exactly. So now we're going to go ahead and move to Dimrill Dale. So it's another sanctuary, so if I stop here, then I'm going to be able to heal up. We are further down the site path, so unlike the Rivendell Terrace, which gave us 0 Twilight, the Dimrill Dale does give us 3, because we are nearing the end of the site path here. And then the ability here says the Twilight cost of the first Moria Orc played each shadow phase is -2. So you're probably going to be able to play a guy, if not for free, pretty close as your very first action. Well, very first Orc that you play. It doesn't have to be your first action. You could play another card.
This is tragic.
Oh no! Are you clogged?
Another freebie for you.
Ay, ay, ay.
Congratulations.
If you're being overly cautious with your fellowship cards, I would encourage you to just drop them on the table. Cycling is another one of those sort of soft skills that you just sort of try to learn as you go. But it's something that's not immediately obvious.
My luck has been really bad with what I'm drawing when.
Yeah.
I can't even play a number of my cards.
Yeah.
Almost any of them.
So at least you're doing, what I would suggest is that you are at least using that ability to discard one of your cards.
Yeah, every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. It's okay, so do I want to make another move? It's a sanctuary. I'm probably going to want to stay here, even though, well, it turns out I have no wounds. But that's still probably the correct move for me here. So I'm going to discard that. Okay. So now we're over to his fellowship side. His fellowship phase. He utilized that Elrond's ability, of course, and he'll be able to use his other ability now and draw a card if he's still got a poopy hand.
There's no hand limit, right?
Not during the normal play. However, when you reconcile, if you have more than 8 cards, you have to discard down to 8. So it's kind of a soft limit between turns, between rounds, okay. But in between, no, you can draw as many as you need to. Just hopefully you're playing them all rather than just holding on to them.
Horrible luck. Okay, I've got a copy of Aragorn. If I click on him, that will heal.
Yes, it'll discard that, so it'll unclog your hand a little bit, and it will heal him. So that's good. I'm curious what you've got that you can't play. I saw that you had the one that you discarded was the power according to his stature.
Events and possessions.
For the wrong people, yeah.
Conditions, they don't match up. So.
Yep. And so just as an aside, when you are building your deck, one of the things you have to be very careful about is making sure that you don't have too many conditional cards like that. It's actually a very common problem with Nazgul decks, is getting all the cool horses and swords and conditions and black
With
breath.
the right Nazgul.
Yeah, and well, you usually end up with all the cool stuff and no Nazgul to be seen. It's a very common failure state with that kind of deck.
That's what I've got right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got Frodo's Fellowship ability,
Which
and I could heal either of Gandalf or
nope,
Aragorn.
you've got it backwards. It says exert another companion who has the Frodo signet to heal Frodo.
Oh, to heal Frodo. Okay.
Yeah, it would be excellent right now, actually, if you could do the reverse and soak up all those wounds, but that's not an option for you, unfortunately.
So I'm toast. I'm hurting big time.
You certainly are. Well, you would be anyway.
But I didn't leave you much to work with.
Nope. So this card that I just discarded, Saruman's Power, is incredibly potent against the right kind of deck. It says exert an Isengard minions, discard all conditions. So that's both your conditions and your opponent's conditions. If you had a whole bunch of conditions laid out, I could hurt you very badly with that.
But I don't have any.
You don't have any, so I got rid of it. It's not actually helping me here. But that is one of those power cards to really look out for. All right, so we have, that was a pretty quick Fellowship and Shadow. There wasn't really anything for us to do, and so the game automatically skips through all the phases. That's really one of the things that's really nice about using GEMP, is that it knows how to handle those sorts of situations. It's a Sanctuary, so I get to heal 5 wounds, but I don't actually have any wounds, so we're not going to worry about it. So now, I'm going to go ahead and play Boromir. And so now we have 6 companions, which is a critical threshold here. One of the things that Decipher realized when they were designing this game is that if you were to allow 9 companions to be on the table all the time, there would be a problem. That even if your opponent had the perfect hand with 8 awesome minions, that still wouldn't be enough to fight Frodo, because you'd have 8 minions going up against the other 8 Fellowship members, and Frodo himself would get away scot-free. So what they did was that they decided that there would be an arbitrary threshold of about 5 companions, which is safe. And then after that, after you get to 6 companions, there are certain cards that are much more powerful. The classic example here, which I have in my hand, is one of the Nazgul named, I don't even know how to pronounce it, Uleri Enquea, Lieutenant of Morgul. People refer to him as Shotgun Enquea. His ability there says maneuver, spot 6 companions, or 5 burdens, and exert Uleri Enquea to wound a companion except the Ringbearer. So he's got 3 vitality. Most of the guys on the table here have 3 vitality. So he can utilize that ability 3 times in a row and choose who he's going to snipe. Which is, of course, very powerful, that you get to pick who is going to live and who's going to die. Or, if, for instance, if Zach was playing up against me right now, he could exhaust Gandalf or exhaust Aragorn. Or completely pick off Legolas Greenleaf over here. It's a very potent strategy that only becomes available, really, once 6 companions are on the table. Most everybody packs a copy of Enquea just in case. But anyway, I am done playing those. So, alright, we move to Anduin Confluence here, which is also one of the more commonly used tools in the toolbelt here. When the Fellowship moves to Anduin Confluence, discard every ally. So I have lost both my Galadriel and my Ramil. I'll take solace in the fact that Elrond is going to bite the dust as well, but I've handed him 14 Twilight, and here's hoping it can do anything at all. You're that clogged, huh? That makes me sad.
So bad. I wish I had a better showing for any who view this.
We might have to do another game if we've got the energy for it. We have been here a bit, though. Okay, got that other Goblin Armory down.
That's it, man.
That's it. Sad, sad day. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and stay here and get rid of my... Oh, nice. So I'm going to get rid of my Sacred Sentinels because I have no more allies to actually that can use it. And then here we are. So we're going to flip over to his Fellowship. He's going to use that desperately needed sanctuary. Oh, here we go. Ranger Sword going on Aragorn. So he's now damage +1, strength of 10. Things are looking up.
I just want to use it just to...
Perfect, yes. And yeah, so that's definitely the use case for OL Breath. The +1 strength is obviously very good. Bumps up the threshold of Overwhelm to 10. And then occasionally that other ability can also be very useful, but obviously we're not really running it in Nazgul here. Okay. I'm going to lay this guy down and that guy down. Okay, so we've got 2 Urks here. One of them has, once again, that you see spot 6 companions to make this minion fierce. So that's that dangerous threshold, where if people are running too many companions, there are quite a few cards that can take advantage of it. And then Urk Lieutenant here, strength of 8, says this minion is strength +1 for each other Urkai you can spot. So he's now 9 because there's one other Urkai that you can see. So Aragorn is gonna snipe this guy, leaving us just with the 1 Uruk to deal with, but Aragorn is finally in a situation where he can take care of it. He's got that 10 strength up against the Uruk's 9. So once the assignments have gone through, he will start lopping off those heads. So as you can see, the difference of one sword was basically what it took to get from Aragorn losing his skirmishes to starting to actually win them. So yeah, here we go. Alright. So I'm gonna drop a Flaming Brand on Boromir. This particular Boromir is also a ranger, so he is eligible to bear it. And then I'm going to drop down an Elrond and a Philibert Bolger. So I've got a different Elrond from the one he had. This one is Herald to Gil-galad. Says that this, so his main ability is a regroup ability that says exert Elrond twice to heal a companion. So he's kind of a mobile hospital. And then it says, at the start of each of your turns, you may spot an ally whose home is Site 3 and heal that ally up to 2 times. So presumably you would just keep healing Elrond every turn of the 2 exertions that he put on himself, and then you know, once a turn are able to peel off 1 wound. So that's that.
That is nice.
Alright, 20 Twilight. Alright, when you play this minion, spot an elf to add 2. There are plenty of elves to spot.
Why?
Hmm?
It's not like highlighting anything on your side for me to spot.
Oh, because it was automatic. So when it
happened already.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. When you play this minion, spot an elf. Not you may spot an elf, but simply spot an elf to add 2, and he did. So there we go. Those scimitars. He's now got more Twilight than he started with. Between the Moria Scout paying for himself and the scimitar generating that Twilight from those armories. Oh ho, nice. So Relics of Moria, Shadow, remove 2 Twilight to play a Moria possession from your discard pile. So if you, for some reason, don't have any scavengers out, you can use that to be pulling out scimitars and getting that Twilight engine going. Oh ho! Would you like... Okay, so he played such a little thing, which is one of those silver bullet cards that's intended to kill Boromir off. Spot a Moria minion to wound Boromir 3 times. The Free People's player may discard 2 Free People's possessions to prevent this. Now, this is not from hand. This is from the table. So I could get rid of both of my Flaming Brands, or a Flaming Brand and the armor that Aragorn is bearing, to prevent it. But you know what? I don't think we... Oh, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to hit no. Shoot. I need to be reading these these prompts a little more carefully. That's twice now that I've messed myself up. Oh, let's see. I guess I'll get rid of the Flaming Brand on Boromir and... Jeez, that is not what I wanted to do. I want to keep that armor on in case another troll comes around. On the other hand, there haven't been a lot of trolls, so maybe I'll just do that. And keep our armor at strength 7. And now I don't have 2 possessions to get rid of. Wow, so he got the best of both worlds.
I have to attack you in roundabout ways because I sure don't have the minions to do it.
Still, that's clearing your hand out a little bit. He's now down to 4 cards, which is cycling a lot better than it was before.
I needed that bad.
Okay, so talking about companions dying, so most of the time when someone, when a minion is killed, they go into the discard pile, but there's a special pile called the dead pile where companions and allies go to. This is to ensure a couple of things. Number one, that if there's a character in the dead pile that is unique, which is indicated by that little dot next to their name, then you cannot play another copy of them. Boromir is dead, so even if I draw another copy of Boromir, it's nothing. It's dead weight. I can't actually put it on the table.
Is that only true of Fellowship side?
Yes, that is only true of Fellowship side. Yep. All minions.
Saruman could come back.
Exactly. So
if he were actually killed, he could come back.
Correct.
Wow.
All right. So we are going to assign this Moria Scout to Aragorn, who's a beefy 11. So Zach went ahead and used one of his Goblin Armories to protect the Moria Scout from the wound. Not necessarily what I would have done, but it's also not necessarily the wrong choice. I'm not damage +1, so I'm not going to knock him out immediately, and so this is going to keep the Scout on the table.
I figured we're already on site 8, so...
Yeah, so you may as well try to keep him out. And he's going to be drawing 4 cards here in the regroup phase. So if I take the bold approach and try to move with 21 Twilight on the table, there's going to be even more available. And if those 4 cards are the right cards, he could really get a lot of goblins out.
If.
It's a big if.
Oh man. My draws have been...
On the other hand, you're through more than half of your deck at this point. So hopefully that was just a... And this was supposed to be, you know, this was one of the top 16 at Worlds. So it can't have been too bad of a deck. Anyway, I've passed my actions if you want to pass yours.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that will now resolve the skirmish, 11 to 8. He takes 1 wound. And so now, at the regroup action... as a regroup action, I could use Elrond's ability here, but, you know, what do you know? There's no wounds. So I will pass, and now we get to reconcile, or he gets to reconcile. And I am going to go ahead and move. So, let's do it. Oh boy. So because you win if you survive to the end of the skirmish phase at Site 9, all Site 9s are shadow-based. And so this one says, when the Fellowship moves to the Summit of Amenhan, each shadow player may draw a card for each burden. So there's 1 burden, so he gets to draw 1 card. So he's now at 9 cards. 34 Twilight on the table. Let's see what happens. So, Goblin Scavenger comes out. We get another Scimitar. We get that generation. Using that armor was probably a good idea. Oh boy, and here I am armorless. Because it did keep that Moria Scout in play. Oh ho ho! Oh boy, so he used the Relics of Moria to play a Moria Possession from your discard pile. It doesn't have any other signifiers on it, so he had a Cave Troll's Hammer there.
That one got reconciled earlier. Yeah. I figured it might come in clutch.
Yep. Alright, so now we have a Strength 18 Cave Troll of Moria. That overwhelms everybody but Aragorn here on the table right now. And so...
Andy's fierce.
Andy's fierce, Andy's damage plus one,
damage plus 1.
and I lost my armor. There's no... Oh, wait a second. Okay, so Cave Troll's hammer says Cave Troll of Moria is damage plus 1. So he's now damage plus 2, meaning that he deals out 3 wounds per skirmish. We are on the last site,
so it
however.
doesn't matter too much.
Yeah, so...
You're there.
I am there. Frodo has to survive. That's the only caveat here. And so it's going to be bloody, which is always, always enjoyable, but
Ultimately, you win. You got there.
I did. Bad draws, they do happen. Throwing 40 Twilight at somebody, a Moria deck can usually easily utilize that and pump out 10 or 12 guys, and I would have been hopelessly... Okay, so that actually was a bit of a misplay. The Cave Troll over here has 4 vitality. He's more than capable of taking an arrow to the face. And then you'd have that armory available later. Again, probably not that it matters, but... So let's go ahead...
I just figured we're on that last spot. If I have 3 people you have to deal with in skirmish instead of the 2.
Well, sure, but you could have put the arrow on Cave Troll and then he'd be at 3 vitality instead of 4. And then you wouldn't have utilized the thingy. The armor.
I see.
And then if I had anything, if I was pulling anything out of my back pocket, you might have potentially been able to use it. So anyway, I've arranged this here just so we can see what happens. Poor little Gandalf here is only strength of 9 only.
So he dies?
So he straight up dies.
No, he has 1.
Nope. So you can see.
Double kills.
Yep. Yeah. So he's overwhelmed. 18 to 9. So that's going to be an immediate kill, regardless of how much vitality he has. Normally he would have been able to take that troll to the face, but not today. So once Zach passes here, we'll see poor Gandalf pass. And so then if I come over here and check out... Yeah. And so then if I come over and check out the dead pile, we see that both Gandalf and Boromir are hanging out in state. So Aragorn is 11 to 10, and Arwen is 7 to 8, so she's going to take a wound. And then real quick, we're going to have the Cave Troll once again because he's fierce. So we'll have him go up against Aragorn, and we will see all that bloodness. Kaboom. So, and as we can see down here in the chat, Teltur is the winner due to surviving to regroup phase on Site 9. So,
GG.
Yeah, GG. I feel bad for your terrible drawing there in the middle. There were a couple of times that if you could have been able to get the Cave Troll out before, it would have hurt. Like if I had gotten to this exact same turn with a bunch of wounds on my guys, it would have been a lot more dicey. Because if Frodo's the only one left that can fight a Cave Troll, that's always a bad time.
Luck of the draw. And I was excited for my next turn because I finally drew Legolas. And I had both his possessions in my hand.
Oh, so you had the Bow of Galadrim and the long knives?
And the knives.
Yeah, he was going to be a fighting machine there.
Yeah. I was like, bring those Uruks. Strength -2. Ah.
Well, do you have time or energy to go again, or do you want to call it quits here, or what do you want to do?
Call it for the night, but I'm definitely down to play again soon.
All right. Well, so we will leave the stream here then. I'll make sure that all the links to all the different places we talked about, the Players Council website and the wiki and so forth, are listed there in the description. If there's anything we didn't go over, please leave a comment so that we can hopefully rectify that. And as always, feel free to hop on the Players Council Discord if you have any questions or comments that you want to bring to our attention, or if you want to help us out. We can always use more people. There's lots of things to be done, lots of low-hanging fruit that have been dangling there for a decade or more. So we'd really like to really polish this game up and make it as good as it possibly can be. But Until then, thanks for watching.